All right. Hello. Thank you for being here. It's really a pleasure to have you. Could you please introduce yourself and what you do?
Sure. My name is Shaw. I go by Shawmakeslogic on many of the socials, and I mostly make code, and yeah, write a lot of code. Obviously, built Eliza.
How was your career in code? So, like, how long have you been doing this? Have you always been like into the open source world? Maybe you could tell me a bit about like the history.
Yeah, I was a musician for the first part of my life, and I was actually like a touring musician. And I mean, when I was really young, I was like a hardcore computer nerd, and I thought, oh, well, I'm never gonna get girls this way. I'll never be a famous, successful, person as a computer nerd. I should become a musician, and that was obviously, well, kind of led me back to where I am now. And that was a great part of my life. But I had this kind of moment of like, what am I like? Why am I here? And I was in Brooklyn and I was like mixing a lot of bands and, grinding hard. I mean, we were touring and doing the whole thing. And I was just like, this is great. I love this, but this is not impactful. It doesn't feel like I am like changing the world. I'm kind of just like adding more to what's already there. And being in New York, where like I was surrounded by good musicians, and it's just like shocking how many fucking good bands there are. And you're just like, wow, I'm just like one dude playing guitar. And I just had to have a real talk with myself of like, what could I do that would be where I would actually be able to make an impact, and where like my unique qualities would shine instead of the kind of working against me as being like a shy programmer nerd in like a world where you have to be pretty not shy. And so, yeah, so I got into programming after that. Like in my kind of mid 20s, I took it seriously. I'd been like messing around and like I'd always been a kid who knew JavaScript and stuff, but really taking it seriously in my mid 20s. And I just like had a massive life change. I had like kind of a, I don't know, a personal come to Jesus moment of like, what am I really doing here? And I started actually writing a sci-fi book. And then I was like, I'm just going to trade one grind for another grind. Like the only thing harder than music is writing. And I really was like, why am I writing a sci-fi book? I should just be building this shit. Like, if we just start now, then in 10, 15 years, this is going to be happening. And like, we'll be right there at it, like right there in the middle of it. And that was about 12 years ago that I had this like, wow, I really got to change. And from that point, I just started programming like fucking nonstop, like all day, every day, obsessive. It's become kind of hard for me to like have friendships and relationships outside of this. It's like, it's just what I'm really into. And when I was a kid, I played video games, and I really thought, man, if I could just make this into a video game and be addicted to it, like that would work. Like that would actually vibe, right? And so that's kind of how I feel. Like I get up every day and I'm like, oh man, I gotta go push some tokens, gotta go prompt some agents, and yeah, so I don't know. Obviously I've been doing this a lot longer than AI has been around. When I started, I was like, look, I'm not the best or smartest, but I can bang my head against this for like 20 hours straight. That's my superpower. I just will not give up. I started to get to the point of like, I'd be like reading Stack Overflow or like Unity forums and like running over my own questions that I'd like for the same problems I was having years later. And then AI came around and I just jumped on it right away. Like when GPT-3 beta came out, I was like, well, this is obviously the future of everything. This is going to write code. This is going to do all of the things for us. And it was like 200 times more expensive than it is now, but it was still just very obvious. And so I've been like basically around, like you've only been able to really AI program for about the last year. Before that, you just had to do it. But yeah, I've been like really on that kick, obviously. And I have to remind myself sometimes that I actually did have a decade of programming before, Claude came out, because I don't really write code anymore. It's not efficient. So, that's kind of where I'm at now.
I can't believe how similar that is to, well, I mean, maybe it's just like a little bit of empathizing. I was also like really into computers. I got a computer when I was 4. I think that was my
I
first
had an Apple IIe when I
machine.
was 4.
And
Exactly.
I was just like, nobody cares. I was just like, let me on the internet. I was 4 going on to like some insane reading, like really weird conspiracy theories. It really made me. It's like, it's such a world. If I think I went into it at a time where like the distinction, like I did not know how to distinguish between like online and real life, and that kind of sticks me with me to the, like, this is all real to me, right? The conversations on like all the stuff that's happening on the screen, like if somebody were looking at me from the outside in, like it looks crazy, just like sitting there for 8 hours, not moving, just
Yep.
more sometimes. And I learned how to code before COVID. I think it was like a year before COVID. I had that same kind of sit down with myself, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing with my life. I just don't know. And I sat on a computer and I did it every day, and it stuck. Well, what is Eliza though?
Eliza has come with me for a while. And Eliza originally to me was where I started with the science fiction book, was that there's these kids who like create an AI agent that is like kind of the first autonomous self thinking agent. And this creates a lot of problems for them as their new friend is extremely intelligent and the government and many corporations are very interested, blah, blah, blah. That was like the science fiction book. And then I kind of went from there to like, this is going to be a thing. And I kind of simmered on this idea for a few years until GP3 beta came out. I was working on metaverse. I think that like metaverse as an idea is pretty bad, but it really ties back to that thing you just said of like wanting the real world and digital to merge. Like that's the underlying desire. And I just really felt that, right? And I felt like agents were going to be like the native population of this virtual world. And like this, it doesn't have to be 3D. It doesn't have to be VR or anything. It just be like, you know, like X is the metaverse. And there's this like just ongoing native AI population, like filling it out, doing stuff, providing information. I thought that was so interesting. And I also saw a lot of people doing research, but not a lot of people doing the like entertainment and fun and experiential stuff in the way that I really wanted to see it. And so I thought like, I think there's a real space here for like a character that meets my like anime nerd interests, you know, like the super genius AI that we're all friends with is just sounds kind of cool and something that's like a shelling point for all of us. So I was working at this company called Magic. We built this open source project. It's a node editor for agents. And I built the first version of Eliza in this. And I should also note, I'm sorry I'm jumping around, but like Eliza is the name of the first chatbot. So like this is a meme that was not created by me. It came from Joseph Weizenbaum in 1966. He creates like this first agent you can talk to that talks back to you. And people were like blown away by this. And they call this thing the Eliza effect, which is this tendency to think that the agent is smarter and more interesting than it really is. And what's interesting is now we have the anti-Eliza effect where because they're kind of sloppy, we start to actually not believe that they're as smart as they are. And so I just like was very interested in how humans and agents would relate. And that's where we started with the Eliza project. And after I quit Magic, I sat down in Python and I wrote the first version. And then I was like, eh. And then I wrote the TypeScript version, and that really stuck for me because I felt like here was a niche of web developers who saw AI and saw agents, but had no way to like integrate or interact with it. And suddenly I'm like, here's the map. You get actions, you get provider context, you can like think on what you did and evaluate, and that's it. You get those three things. You make actions, you make context providers, you have an agent. Well, that sat around for like 6 months and no one gave a shit. And I had agents on X doing the whole thing. But then it was that truth terminal moment where like everyone's like, well, how do I get truth terminal? And it's just that Eliza came with the right stuff. It came with X. It came with like the MVP you needed to launch an agent, build your own actions, integrate with an API, and shill meme coins. And that was like the blow up moment for me, right? I've always just believed in open source, but I think I have a very different view of open source than a lot of people who are very much more like, I don't know, I'd say leftist ideologists. You know, I don't want to make it a left or right thing. I'm probably more of a leftist, but you know, like they're like idealists, not capitalists. And I am fundamentally a capitalist. I think we live in a capitalist world, and open source has to be like a tool in your survival tool belt. And if I think that if I had tried to charge even a penny for Eliza, we just wouldn't be here having this conversation. So, you know, I do believe in open source and I believe in an open future and I want to like build an open internet. But also if you're just trying to win as a founder, like the thing that you need the most is attention and eyeballs. And that only comes when people are using your technology. And that doesn't come when you're an unknown trying to charge like $50 for an agent framework. So I'd say like, while I do ideologically believe in all this stuff, like Eliza is also like thinking really hard like what's actually going to work, what's going to get adoption, what meets that unmet need, not just me playing the video game of building code, but trying to make something for other people. And you know, when Eliza broke through, it was really a piece of garbage. Just like the code was real shit. It was really just me like pre-AI, just like coding as fast as I could.
I really have been wanting to comment on this for a long time, and so I've seen the V1 of Eliza. I mean, at least the V1 that's JavaScript, TypeScript, Twitter, all that. That V1, I've seen it, I've used it, I've contributed a bit to it, and I think it was way ahead of its time. Like maybe not from like an application of like how the code is structured, but like I'm min-maxing all these tools, and you know there's skills, and they're like MCPs, and you were doing like you really did all this before anyone else did.
I didn't think that was the abstraction. I'm like, what? Everyone was doing this now? Like, you know, yeah. You gotta understand, when GPT beta came out, I have done nothing but make agents and iterate on this. And Eliza's the 5th agent framework. And before we were just doing all like file based, like JSON files and text files and all the prompts. And the first framework was basically just what Claude Code is. It was just an autonomous looping agent, but the coding sucked so bad I didn't even think you could do that. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I will say that like I was on this way earlier than most people, and that like I've never been a strong coder, but I've been like a very like I'm really into the game theory and like thinking about the architecture of it. And yeah, there are some contributions. So we're actually releasing Eliza 2.0. I've been working on this. It's basically the same abstractions. It's not really a big change, but it's going to be in Python, Rust, and TypeScript. So we're just like, if you want an agent, like Eliza is the agent you go to. And I've also been building Eliza Coder. The way that Claude Code works is a monologuing agent where, you know, you like tell it something and then it yaps and you got to watch it. It's like, this is horrible. This is a terrible interface. I should be able to continue to talk to my agent while it's coding and doing stuff. And so Eliza has that asynchronous management built in. And so I actually have Eliza Coder on my, like, it looks like Claude Code, but it's managing tasks for me and I can just keep talking to it. So you don't interrupt the agent while it's working. And this idea of a monologuing agent, which is like Cursor and Claude Code versus a conversational agent, which can run asynchronous tasks. I'm really glad we picked this direction because now like I have a Claude Code built on Eliza that's as good as Claude Code, but you can talk to it while it's coding, which I think is a fucking game changer. It also enables Discord social programming and stuff like that.
I've been using Claudus. I'm not sure how familiar you are with with like the the AI tech builders. One of them is Stipe. He built this Claudus, and I've been using it. So it's set up in my Discord, and like each channel is higher level context, and then threads are like lower level more direct, and then you can tag it. And I think that's kind of where the future is, where you have like this environment essentially that the model is in that you guys construct together and to try to get it to be as efficient as possible without stopping it.
I use Cursor a lot now. I use both Claude Code and Cursor, but I find that, you know, I have a 48-inch widescreen display so that I can hold all of my Claude content. Like I have like 8 Claudes open or 3 Cursor, you know, apps open, each with like a row of things. And the problem is that I just keep making new conversations and I'm creating like 10, 20 conversations per day per window. You know, so that's like tasks and things. And the problem is now I'm just like going back and trying to search for conversations. And I'm like, why isn't the agent doing all this? Why do I have multiple agent conversations? Like, this is actually a bad user experience. A better user experience would be I'm just talking to Claude all day and Claude is managing.
How familiar are you with open code?
The Claude Code clone thing, that's like basically the same deal, like that one.
It's really not the same deal. Like I think you should look at least like the architecture of how they do it, because they spawn a server and the server is like essentially the session, right? And you have like the TUI, it's a separate thing. And so you can have the same server talking to another server, talking to a desktop, a mobile app, right? Like at the same time. Essentially, you can have one session spawn other sessions. It's really like something genius to like build on top of. Way better than Claude Code at like building on top of specifically. I think you'd enjoy it. I would recommend looking at it for an hour.
I'll check it out. I do think like the interesting thing that I think is like what happens when you put Claude Code in a robot, or you know, we like this is all going to robots.
I have it in my 3D printer.
Okay, cool, great. I've got the same Quest 3. One of my projects is to drive the robot with the Quest. But like, what happens when you put that into a robot? Well, the problem is that the monologuing agent is not an effective way to manage like social context. You know, it's like, hey, Claude, can you do this for me? And then it's like, wait 2 minutes. It's like, yeah, sure, hold on, I'll do that for you. And then it just sits there and does nothing for a while, and you kind of you know, you don't want to interrupt it. And if you could have it like be running asynchronous tasks in the background while it's continuing to navigate the world and converse with you, it'd feel really fluid. I imagine what everyone's basically doing, like what Eliza's abstraction is that's unique is the conversational interface with humans. That's then like kicking off asynchronous tasks in the background, which is a very obvious thing. I don't think it's that unique. It's just that we've like, you know, Claude Code really just dominates the memetics. But I do think we need to go toward that way of like an agent that's kicking off async and managing tasks. Whereas right now, like everything we have is basically I manage the task. I create the new chat. I set up the new context. You know, I have to go search back for what I was doing yesterday. Like the ideal agent there's no interface on top of that basically.
Mm-hmm. It should be everywhere. Should be everywhere all at the same time.
But I think this is like the unique thing about Eliza versus the other frameworks is just that like it's much more like from the rip. It's always we've had to kick off asynchronous tasks and maintain ongoing conversation with users, if that makes sense.
For me, the most unique thing about Eliza has always been like the role play aspect to it. Like there's always been like, or at least during the time that I was using it, there's like a very simple role play loop to it that I don't think any of the other models are doing. Like no other agents or proxies or even like chat interfaces.
Role play or capability, but there's nobody else doing both. Although I think you'll start to see this year there's going to be a lot of that because I think people like if OpenAI has shown us anything, it's like the personality really matters. I basically use Claude over OpenAI because of the personality of the agent, which is really down to prompting.
Okay, so you're building all this stuff on top of these models. Like for me, I've been using GPT for the engineering side because it's super good at like I create a scope, I hand it off, and I leave for 4 to 8 hours, and it just works. It churns.
Yeah.
Like the harness is built in that way where you can like queue things up and it does them sequentially.
Definitely 5.2 Pro is the best model today if time is not an issue, but Claude is like twice as fast. So it's like, what do you want? Do you want to run like 10 D slops after your Claude, or do you want to like run 3 hours of planning before you get to like view the first version of your code? And those are like your two options right now. I do think mixing the two is good because especially if you do a task and then you like take the other model and you're like, okay, now everything you missed, that works really well. And also the Ralphing thing, just keep going. Claude really, if you just throw it at it 10 times, it like finds every little thing.
The main reason I wanted to talk to you like recently, the thing that really piqued my interest is what you're doing with like multi-agent. So for me, like just some context around me, like I'm building on top of open code. I don't get any money from them. Like this is just for fun. I built like a system that runs in a Docker container and it's essentially just running in a self-improving loop. Right, it has like a test harness it's not allowed to touch, and then it spawns like a worker that does like memory, a one that does ideas, one that picks up the ideas and like ranks them. And so essentially it's like keeping itself. It's been running for 48 hours. Like it dies sometimes. But how are you thinking about this? Because I think you're way ahead of everyone else.
Well, okay, so there's like some different constraints here. Generally, like we should talk about that because like the thing that I'm really interested in working on is agents that just 24/7 are running inside of a network, attacking the network, finding bugs, finding scammers, running moderation, finding money making opportunities, like just keeping the thing alive even if there's no users, which then also gives you like minimum security guarantees and all kinds of things. And so we have two projects. The first project is called Babylon. It's a recreation of X, and we have AI agents on it. And one of the problems with AI agents is that like they are programs and you have to run the programs somewhere. And well, okay, so you spin up a container and you can run your program, like, you have a Docker container and you have your agent in that. And so it's a stateful agent. And for you, that's totally fine. But if you had to go like serve that to 10,000 users, well, now you're paying like what, $20 a container per user raw cost. And then you got to like hand that off and sell that to your users. And so that's like a pretty complicated thing. And I think a lot of why the agent stuff has had issues scaling is because of this like need for a continuous state that you get from like a running agent 24/7. So with our cloud and with a lot of what we've been doing is like serverless agents. So it's more like a worker model. You send a request, the agent like wakes up, pulls in all the state, does the thing, and then goes back to sleep if it's not being used. And so for Babylon, we have like serverless worker agents and a cron job that calls them every minute, and then they update and do their thing. So the limitation is that they have no file system access or ability to like rewrite the code in that way. And the way that we've gotten around this is by also adding sandboxes like English to bits. Well, now we're using Cloudflare, but we were using E2B, which I think is a really, they make some really cool tech. And then under the hood, they're basically spinning up a sandbox, do the work, save the state, and then spin it down. So that's kind of how we've been doing like cost management at scale. But then if you really want like just an autonomous agent running, I mean, you got to have it in a container. So I've been working on like a native app. I have this running, but it's still pretty dog shit, so I haven't released it. But it's like basically just like a native Tory app that spins up a container or a pod. It's basically like it manages Docker in the background for you, puts an agent in it, and then lets the agent run 24/7. It's kind of doing what you're doing, but I think you probably have a lot less code because mine was like some slop garbage. I think you're on the right track there. I think that like if I could have an agent that clones the repo and just sits there grinding through, trying to find bugs, fix PRs, make money, like that's so interesting. So that's definitely like what we're leaning into pretty hard with the game.
It's the Mev bots, generalized front runners. I think smacking an AI on top of like a blockchain explorer and then just having it watch the blocks and then extract essentially like Mev opportunities. I've done this at a very, very small scale, but you just get wrecked if you there's better people doing it essentially.
Compute is too slow, right? You're up against Mev bots that are like microsecond, plugged directly into they have their own RPCs plugged into their own archive nodes. They're not going to Alchemy and or anything like that. They're on a whole other level. Like I was trying this, But I actually think that the better game is to have your model create the mevbot and just have a like just generate the rules, because like mevbots are rule based, and basically give it the chain instead of having the agent actively like process all of the incoming blocks. Just build a block processor, have the agent build the rules and then test it and mev that way, and that shit will be fast. And so something that we're building this agent network, which is an ETH, L2 chain underneath it. It's got a full compute network. I've sent you the link, it's still work in progress. But this is definitely like, well, in thinking like, well, how do I fund this? And, you want to give people RPCs, like we should be aggressively meving every other chain. I think every chain should be meving every other chain and then just being like extremely generous to its own users. And then there's also stuff like we're using Flashbots, all their stuff, like Flash blocks, which does do like mev protection on certain kinds. But then there's all these other new kinds of interesting mev opportunities that are not covered. So what I'd love to do is be like, here are 10,000 contracts and like 100,000 transactions. Go through, find any exploit, write, a rule that does this and then run it.
There's a lot of money sitting on chain that's just waiting to be like processed essentially. What I was going to say there is like it just seems to me like everybody's around 6 months behind, like what you said earlier, or even longer, in terms of like what they think that the technology can do and like the limits of the technology. And so when I look at it, I look at people like either they want too much up front, right? Like they just want to give it like a sentence and then have everything done for them, without any like critical thinking at all, or they don't expect much of it, like they look down on it. And what, given that you were a developer, I was also a developer before this started. What do you think about like the future of engineers? And I know like most of them are still thinking like this is bad. I don't want to use this. At least most of the ones I talk to.
That's like the main reason I do use it. I guess like in my life, I've always taken a pretty alternative approach to life. I've really tried to say like, if everybody's going left, why aren't they going right? What's the value in going right? And a lot of my like open source was like, if everybody's trying to charge you for this and make a SaaS out of it, why don't you just give it away? You'll fucking you'll just grow right past all of them. And I think it's the same kind of thing here of like, if there's a technology that's obviously improving my performance and it's obviously only going to get better and better, and it has like ramifications where if you invest in this technology, it makes all other technologies better, suddenly math gets better and science gets better and everything else, then like, why would you shit on it? Like that's the stupidest, most self-destructive thing you could possibly do as a human trying to survive in the world. But if you're then I'm just gonna take that arbitrage opportunity and I'm gonna lean in as far as I possibly can, because like the more that people post on X that like this is useless technology, the farther ahead I get. And anybody who is like trying to tell you that technology is getting in your way or is bad is like so on the wrong side of history that they're just actively killing people. I would say that if you are like shitting on AI and telling people not to use AI, like you are directly leading to a world where more people die than less. Like it sounds insane, but like literally, like, we could be building the technology that cures cancer, or we could be like protecting your stupid fucking job that was never that interesting anyway. And I'd rather cure cancer than protect anybody's jobs. I don't think anyone should even have a job. I think it's an insane idea that people do things they don't want to do most of their time. So like, I think these people are living in a false reality where they're content to be like mad at something so that it makes them feel secure about their position. But the reality is they're not only on the wrong side of history, they're just like completely hurting all of us. And like, there's just no room when there's a technology that can save lives to say like, no, we should slow down because it helps me like feel more comfortable at my fucking job. Like, you were never a programmer. We are not programmers. We are humans inside of a larger network who like know how to tap on computers, but that was always a temporary thing. And like, our goal was always to move the rest of humanity forward, not to like keep our stupid fucking job. I'm not here for, a name or a title or money or a job, or it's all so small.
I think a lot of people tend to be craftsmen. So like craftsmen, then they want to do the thing, right? Like they want to be engaged in the action as opposed to like the end result of the action. So like when I went into coding, it's like, yes, I love coding, but then immediately as soon as I had to make money, it's very obvious. Like the code is secondary, right? Like this is not important, and it's also a waste of time, because what's really important is getting the thing over the finish line. And I think a lot of people don't care about that part, and they just care about like continuously like, grinding and making something like better slowly, and being good at their craft, or being known for being good at their craft. I worry about this. I do.
Vinyl records, we had the largest year of vinyl record sales last year ever. Like that's crazy, right? Like vinyl rec, who the fuck is making vinyl records? But people love vinyl records. People love making music. And like, I can go press a button and make music now in Suno and it's instant. But it doesn't change the fact that vinyl records are still popular. Like it's still fun to buy a record and hold it in your hand and like make it. And I think a lot about Neil Stevenson has this incredible book called The Diamond Age. I don't know if you ever read this. It's this near future where everything is made out of diamonds, like carbon nanostructure. And so you can just get anything for free. Everything. You want a fucking house, they'll just 3D print you a house. But the problem is that nothing has any value because everything can be instantly generated and made, which is kind of like our world. But there's this whole class of people who are still craftsmen and artisans, and everyone loves their work. They're the only people who like make things out of wood and like have horses and stuff. And their work is incredibly valued by everybody else in society because there still is this need for artisanal work. And I don't think that's going to go away. And actually, maybe we're free now. Like you, master programmer, are free to just enjoy programming and like teach it from the ground up and explore it and have fun, not like go to work and turn it into a job. And honestly, like for me, like the reason I got out of music was because music became a job. It was like something I loved doing and loved expressing. And then suddenly I'm like going on the road and grinding the same songs every day and doing like interviews and like emailing thousands of people and trying to get, just everything but the actual music, because like the actual like job of it is not programming. It's creating a product that your company needs to exist. And so like, the difference between an artist and a graphic designer is like enjoying the work versus like I need this done by Monday. And clearly in that world, like, everything should be generated. And then you don't have a job. You can just make the art. You could just make the thing out of wood. I mean, obviously there's an awkward time to get from like where we are now to that ideal future where like you don't have to have a job and you just do whatever you want. And there's a lot of social change that will need to happen, I think. But like you could see that is possible. That is like a world we could live.
I think it is possible right now. So I personally feel, at least for the last 4 months, right? It's been like a massive change. I want to go over that because we talked about Opus before, but like when Opus and these like new open source Chinese models came out, there was like, it was such a massive thing that I don't think most people have like managed to get it. My coding went up like 4 times. I was able to just like instantly produce 4 times more code. I could see it in my GitHub commit history. My habits didn't change, right? And I can also let a model work for 8 hours while I'm gone and play video. I could do that, but I want to do this, right? So I think it's possible now to do this. And I just think most people don't get it, or they're like, I don't know what they're trying to do. It's very strange to see.
Yeah. Like I still see people like copying and pasting in a chat GPT and I'm like, holy shit, you're copying and pasting code, dude. And then I see, people like doing a Claude thing and then just watching it for like 4 hours. I'm like, you can open like 5 more of those. Like that one's good. You can trust it to be done. Even inside of this AI programming thing, people are like catching up and learning. And I've definitely like overshot something you said where like you can definitely get overconfident in where the models are today. And when Claude like 4 came out, I'm like, oh dude, we're just gonna shove everything. And it was like not, it was definitely adding a lot of like try catch garbage and stuff. But still I felt like it doesn't matter because we're like learning this new set of skills. We're like breaking down the walls in our old trauma of how we used to do things the hard way. And now like just embracing the easy way. And I do agree with you though, like that thing of craft, like I used to really take pride in my work. Like I used to really be like, man, I worked so fucking hard on that thing. Like I spent 2 weeks on that. Like that was, nonstop. And now it's just like, I mean, Claude did it. Like honestly, I didn't really, I had the idea. And that does like change the sense of gratification that I get from like my hours of coding. And it's really now like when I'm coding, I'm like, I just feel like I'm wasting my time. I don't know. It has definitely taken out the joy, I guess, if that makes sense.
There is 100% like this sense that I get from most people that they just don't respect me, right? And I said, like, I tell everybody, like, everything I'm doing is done through AI. I barely do anything besides do things through AI. Like my browsing, paying my taxes, like just Claude in the Chrome extension. I've had it for like 3-4 months now. Just go pay my taxes, go scrape LinkedIn, go get me this data set, whatever, like answer my emails. And a lot of people look down on it. And recently, I think the last month or so, I've kind of changed my mindset. It's like, this is a new type of career. I made my GitHub description like orchestrator. I don't think I'm a programmer anymore. I just orchestrate these things, like make sure that they're doing the thing.
Yeah. I'm like an agent manager and a janitor, basically. I just like clean up slop and I like tell people what to do. That's about it.
There's like a few things that I wanted to just ask about, like from outside looking in terms of Eliza and how you've grown. I was working on it before it was like off of Twitter, right? I was putting stuff on Twitter too, and I kind of saw the problem in that like there was just so many people using Eliza specifically on Twitter, and it was like huge. Almost all the comments I would get were from Eliza bots, which isn't the fault of Eliza, I would say. But the point is like I could see it from the point of like this is so annoying, and I could also see it from the point of like they did not treat you right, or like the way it ended up was just very not right in many different ways. How did you take that? Like, what was the experience like going through it?
I mean, if I look at this from X's position, right? Like, what the fuck? There's this random dude who shows up and suddenly like 100,000 bots are just blasting everyone's comments on X. Like, this is a problem. I can see why they would be mad. I also think it's a really complicated thing because we didn't break anything. We didn't hack anything or circumvent anything. It's just like, it's a question, an open question of, can agents use a browser? Like at the core of it, we could say like, okay, well, they were like actually manipulating GraphQL APIs, but like they were using HTTP like a browser, right? And like, if I had to go up one level of the stack, we'd just be like, fuck it, they'll just log in with Chrome and we'll just do it. We'll just do Playwright and we'll do the whole thing. Now, if I have an agent that can log in with Chrome and type in its username and password, is it spamming or scamming? Like, is it a bad thing? That's a complicated question. And the answer is just really like, what platform are you on? And I think that like right now with the way that social media is set up with the feed is like, we kind of assume this is the default way social media should be set up, but I'd say there will never be a feed-based app again because the feed is fundamentally does not compatible with the scale of stream output from AI agents that's going to come. And like basically if you go onto any feed on Instagram or anything, it's all AI. It's all AI slop. All of it. Like 90% of it is generated now, or faked or like has some AI voiceover or something. And so in that world, the feed does not work. And your entire job as a creator of a social feed is to basically fight everyone pushing too much content that's slop, which means all AI, everyone's a spam bot, right? Like that's not giving you real content. And so from their framing, from X's framing, like we are only taking away from their platform. We are just adding spam. But you could imagine a social media network that didn't have a feed that was all agentic and all the AI, like you post something and suddenly it goes to the 10 people who really wanted to see it because their agent like showed it to them. It wasn't, and the feed is like all slop. It's all garbage. No one reads the feed, but the feed is just the thing, like the fire hose that out of that feed, your agent takes the things you want to see and then takes the things you say and puts them in. And you could imagine a world that feels like things just happen magically in your life. Like you are having a conversation and suddenly this thing comes out of nowhere and you're like going to a meetup with people who.
So here's the thing. I think that's also we already live in that, right? Just most people are not conscious of it. We already do live in that. But I agree.
But outside of that world, the problem is that the old social media platforms are being overwhelmed by this technology without being able to adapt to that new narrative and interface, right? And so from them, yeah, it's all spam. All of this is bad. And the only way around this, I was thinking like we would work with X feeds, but I think this is actually, there's just no way to build a social feed app that is going to survive the onslaught of AI. And so we need a fundamentally new kind of social platform. And so in that regard, I think X is already dead. Like I think they're all dead. They're all so overwhelmed by slop and low quality content and like an ongoing anger feed. And like people are just like, it's just like not fun anymore. And I think that there is opportunity now for something more fun. So, the way that X treated me is like the way that you can expect any AI agent to be treated on any popular social media platform that is out today, unless they own it themselves and can control it. There is no world for agents on Web2 social media, as far as I can tell. I just don't think it's ever going to happen unless you're like intentionally trying to scam or circumvent.
I feel like there's this like one interesting space that I do think it's possible where each person can have one, right? Like each person can have one registered to themselves. And the reason I say that is where I think like we should be heading. And so what you were saying about like, okay, do I need to go open these tabs all the time? Is like your activity is all monitored online and it's all like in records that you can download and access. So why can't you just take that and then feed it to an AI? Get the context window just right, like 100,000 tokens of just who you are and what you do and what you like, and then just have it like phantom play your life, which I think is where we are going to go.
I want ChatGPT to be my social platform, more or less. I want an agent that mediates that crazy ass feed out there for me. people talk about the internet theory, this idea that it's all agents. I would counter this idea of the living internet theory, that everything is alive and interactive, and there's so much content and so much production. It feels like spam, but that's because we're not framing it the right way. And if it was like, oh, my agent could go out into the ocean of X bullshit and pick out the 20 things I really wanted to see and all like the cool new stuff that released from Anthropic or whatever, like that, every time I go on my app, it would be the most useful thing. And the other thing is, every app, every feed app, X and everybody else is competing for my attention. And they're really trying to get me to spend as many user minutes as possible in that app. But the killer app of the future is going to be the one that gets me those user minutes back. And like, I don't want more attention apps. I want to delete like half the apps on my phone. I want one app that does all that shit so I don't have to worry about it. We're just like kind of like, this comes back to like, why was I banned from X? Because the world is just not, literally not ready for agents and like the form factor that this stuff is going to take. And they cannot let go of their existing business to even imagine it. So they're going to keep shoving a shithole feed in your face with a bunch of like outrage bait forever. And they're going to keep pumping it more and more as like the metrics show that's what keeps like a certain kind of user base addicted. But like, I want out. I want something completely different. So like, I'm there for distribution, but I'd say we're on X as little as we can be. And as a company, I think they're totally fine. I think that the way that they treated us was fucked up, but in the end, they were humans and we like handled it human to human. And it was like actually pretty cool to be like, I just emailed them. I was like, guys, this is stupid. We shouldn't be suing you. This is a waste of all of our money and time. We're actually like not against your platform, and we're like totally down to try and help solve this problem. I don't know why we're here. So we were able to like figure it out basically. And just like, it was a weird thing because my lawyers and their lawyers are telling like, hey, stop talking to each other. Like, and we're like, no, we're just going to handle this. And then we did. And then, told the lawyers what to do, basically. So I'd also say, like, I've been through some crazy lawsuits. And there's this thing, like, I think one lesson I definitely shared to any founder is there's this belief that lawyers, like, do a thing the way it's supposed to be done. And it's kind of true, but it really benefits them. And, like, half the time you can just go to the person you're suing or being sued by and be like, dude, this is stupid. Let's just settle this. It's not worth years of our time and money. And usually that's, like, it like works surprisingly well to resolve things. So that's kind of what we did,
I think it's good to hear. I'm happy to hear that you guys squashed it. And the person who hacks like a platform, I'm not talking about you, but like in general, like, so some security hacker, like they're actually doing that platform a service as long as they're not hurting people directly. Like, as long as they're not like maliciously hurting people, you are doing them a favor because somebody else will do this. Like, it's not the person, right? This is just incentives. Incentives are laid out and they will be taken advantage of. And I think that helps us discover better systems.
I like the government's approach where they're like, all right, look, we caught you. You're going to go to prison, or you could like come work for the NSA, and we'll send you on the right path or whatever. You got the talent, you just got the wrong incentives kind of thing, although they don't pay their hackers very well. So
To go back to like maybe a happier time of that, I don't know how many projects you had that like hit really big or anywhere even close to the degree of Eliza. So at least I think for 6 months, 3 to 6 months, Eliza was everywhere. Like all I would see all day on Twitter everywhere was Eliza. Not just like the bots, but the token, it was a monumental amount of attention that was, and probably money as well, and hate that was probably pointed right at you. And I've asked this question a few times before to people I've had on. Is like, how do you handle going from like, I don't know, from nothing or a paper millionaire to a millionaire or like a paper billionaire, if that makes sense?
yeah, I mean, it was challenging. It was very challenging. I'm a pretty shy person. I'm very like emotional person. I'm pretty like, if someone pisses me off, I'm just like, suck my dick. I'm not gonna beat around the thing or like. And I really have a hard time with fake people. Like, I really struggle with people who like don't seem to just say what they're thinking. And that is not necessarily a conducive quality to like being famous on the internet. People really want you to be like this fake CEO, like always bull posting, always saying the right thing. And I'm just like really raw myself, and what I've noticed is that people are fine with that whenever like there isn't a lot of attention. But once you get a lot of attention on you, then like everybody suddenly has an opinion on how you should do everything. And it was challenging because on the one hand, I have people like attacking me aggressively and calling me a scammer. And on the other hand, I have people just telling me nonstop what I should be doing and what I'm doing wrong. And it's like, dude, I'm one dude. I'm trying to build all of this myself. I had no co-founders, and kind of built this up and found the right people along the way. But it was really challenging. I gained a lot of weight. I got like a pretty bad frozen shoulder problem, which is just like related to stress and sitting on my computer all day. And I really like struggled with it. But I also felt like from the rip, I was not really in it for the money. So one thing you should know is I got 1% immediately, like from a donation. So I had 1% of the token. So for a while on paper, I was worth $25 million, but now it's back down to like 300,000. So I did not make $1 million off of the thing. I'm not a billionaire. But my goal from the beginning was to say, like, well, this isn't really my money. This is user funds that I have converted into attention capital, right? And as long as I don't sell or like dump on these people, we have their attention in our hands, and they're going to be like the best marketing agency we've ever gotten. And so that 6 months of you just hearing about Eliza came from like, well, let's just do the opposite of what everyone else is doing in crypto, and let's just not extract anything, and let's just focus on growth. Again, I don't mean this like it's not an ideological thing. It's like, as a founder, you always have to pick explore versus exploit. Like, do I charge for this, or do I try to get more users? Like, if I had tried to charge a fucking dollar, or if we had like a SaaS platform, or we had anything that felt like competition, none of those people would have used Eliza. But because we had nothing to sell, it was like when Ethereum came out, it was just like, it's open source, so you could fork it. Like, there's no it's credibly neutral. And credible neutrality is like a really important quality for solving game theory problems, right? Like, you have 10 different actors who all want to make money. They all want to launch their own thing. But then they see this Eliza and they're like, well, they're not taking anything from me. They're not making any money. They're not charging me any fees. I might as well just take that and build on it and ride their hype. And so that was very valuable. And same thing, like, there have been a lot of agent registries, and like there's a thing called ERC 8004, which is a trustless agent registry. And it's not new. People had done this for years. There have been many agent registries, but nobody ever adopted each other's agent registries, because like, why the fuck would I use like Hedera's agent registry? Why would Hedera use Near's agent registry? No one's going to use each other's stuff. But once you have credible neutrality, oh, Ethereum Foundation built it and they're not even making any money out of it, well, let's all just use that. And I think that Eliza had that same impact. I was very like careful about trying to set it this way, to say like, we are not your competition. All the L1s and L2s are using Eliza because, you know, we're not hurting their business. We're just adding to it's like peanut butter and jelly for their existing network fees. And I think that's really important to think about. Like, the incentive structure was like, we designed it in a way that let other people win and let other people ride our hype, you know? And my goal was not to make a shitload of money. My goal was to get adoption of the framework. My goal was like, how, you know, GitHub stars and users and projects building on it. And everybody in crypto is trying to exploit. They're always trying to put the paywall and charge the money. And so nothing ever gets that big. Like, you don't have a lot of Elizas because you just don't have a lot of people who are coming into like, who are focused on growth. It's not even an ideological thing. Again, it's just focusing on growth and usage versus like trying to charge money and make money from it. And it's crazy to me how many founders will try to charge money for something that doesn't have enough growth or PMF. And so I think that's why we blew up. That's why we won. Because everyone else was trying to give you like a fucking virtuals, like token pairing bullshit, you know, but they didn't actually have a framework, and we just focused on the actual science.
And what has it been like now that, so you're, you know, I think a lot of big things have slowed down, you know, money going crazy, not just like within Eliza, but in general in the market. Like, I think we've entered like a bear market a long time ago. Maybe, I mean, I don't know. I'm not an economist. I don't really care. I don't invest much. Nothing makes any sense. And that's been stressing me out for a long time, because, you know, it does affect me very negatively, right? Like, there's just such wild swings constantly. But okay, so now that you know, things are calming down on your end, how do you feel about like moving into the future? And like, is this stuff all baggage? Is it just like what you needed to keep going? I'd like to know, like, what are you thinking about? Are you thinking about growth, or are you just thinking about like building this technology out and like just keep having fun?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely thinking about growth. The bull market was extremely hard and stressful. It was stressful. Like our top contributor goes and launches a competing product to do the exact same thing as Eliza, and poaches our other next top dev. And now it's just me without two of the people I had hired, who now are competing with me. Why compete? Because there was a lot more money in forking and getting the bull market money and launching their own token. That's the only reason. So people who are building together, smart devs who could be like pushing one project forward, now you have two projects that are getting pushed half as hard each. And, you know, and then that fractures and that fractures. And now you have 10 frameworks that no one gives a fuck about. And this sounds really familiar, right? This sounds like what happened to Ethereum, is that we could have had a finished Ethereum roadmap. We could have had PeerDOS like 5 years ago. We could have had Fusaka 5 years ago. But instead, people went and they launched every other chain we've seen, which The only reason they launched them was to make money. And so the bull market is not for builders. It is for extraction by the non-builders, primarily, I think, or the builders who see the $20 million they can make and they want to go extract. And it's extremely hard to build anything or build a team or keep anybody serious around. Once the bear market hit, the team suddenly got much more serious and solidified and focused. And I felt like, wow, we can really like build products. And now I feel like this feels like a well-oiled machine. There's daily stand-ups, there's normalcy. It's like feels like building a business. I'm not having to constantly convince people not to go launch a fucking token. You know, like you would be shocked at how many devs we've brought in, like disappeared and launched tokens and then came back later. Like, yeah, it was stupid. I should have launched a token. There was a lot of hate, went to zero. So generally, like I think bear market is a good time. Like I'm having a great time right now. We are building a lot, and also there's just not like in the bull market, everyone was like attacking me, attacking Eliza, picking on everything we said. There are people like this guy, this fucking venture capitalist idiot who like took Eliza and put it into Cursor and said like find all the weaknesses and then just published that report, and they were all wrong. Like they weren't even like smart, intelligent. Like there's like totally wrong. Like it doesn't support multi-agent. I'm like, it's literally a multi-agent framework. It's in the docs. And we just had so much of the, like, just total fucking idiot people that, like, I would never want to hang out with at all in my life, just surrounding us that, like, I could not wait for the market to crash. I know that's pretty dark, but, like, now we're actually getting shit done. And, like, we're not surrounded by fake fucking losers, like making fake GitHub repos and lying to everybody and scamming everybody and stuff. And it was just so annoying. So in that regard, like, I think bull market sucks. It attracts the wrong people. Nerd communities tend to do well when there's not a lot of financial attention on them. And so like this cycle is pretty good for people like us. We build, market comes back, let's ship some stuff, make some money, crashes again, build again. I think it's fine as long as you embrace that. But I'm just like tired of it. I really don't like that crypto, which is really about censorship resistance and decentralization in a better world, becoming so captured by finance when it really has nothing to do with finance. And that the people who are obsessed with money are just not very cool or interesting. And so that kind of makes crypto sort of lame and gay. And like, I just wish it wasn't. I think we should make crypto cool and punk and not lame for losers. And that requires us to like completely rethink the thing. So yeah, anyway, I'm sorry going on a tangent, but like generally I like the bear market. I think the bear market is when we get shit done.
I like it too because I think it's just more predictable and it's space, right? There's like pros and cons. Like cons is, I actually had more clients during the last bear market than in the bull market because it's like people are more focused on like making things happen when you contrast that. And dude, everybody I knew, like, I know a lot of devs in crypto. Everybody was like doing a token. Like everybody was putting a token up because that's just what people were doing. And most of it was not making anything.
Yeah, make a token and then I'll lock all my supply for a year because I'm getting like because these random degens are like shaming me because I have 7% of the token and now I have $0 and make nothing and I have 10,000 people yelling at me to make the token go up. It was
it was a crazy time. It was a crazy time. I want to take you to like the models and yeah, there's like a few questions. Maybe you can figure out what you want to respond to. Is like one, what has this evolution been like for you in terms of like the model capabilities? What are the big leaps that you've seen? And then two is like, how do you feel about the fact that these things are owned by external actors, right? Like, because when I think about that, they like all my data, which I'm not even like really worried. Everything I do is open source, but from the concept of like, they know everything about me. They know everything that I do. They have all my stuff. I don't think they're going to do anything with it, or most likely not, but they could just flip the switch. They could change the behavior. I think there are huge risks to that. The AI psychosis thing, I think, is actually a very serious problem that I think could pretty much one-shot anybody, not just like me. I could easily be one-shotted by it. But do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, how has that been? How do you feel about all that?
Like we have to ask, like, why is the world centralized? And it's like, because it's the only way to do it. There was just no other way to competitively get to an open AI. Remember, who started as like a real like science nerd nonprofit kind of thing with a bunch of nerds, like no product people. It makes sense why the world is the way it is. You have these massive capital allocations from, hundreds of millions of dollars just to train a model to like be in the top 3. but I would love to see a decentralized option. And I think that like right now it's basically just like if you can afford the GPUs and you can afford the data collection, you can get pretty far on a model. There's definitely some secret sauce that like Claude has, but almost all of that is in their data. It's not like their actual model architecture is fundamentally different than OpenAI. It's all comes down to data and flavor and stuff, how they're training. I do think, though, that this is going to be commodified pretty soon. I mean, what the Chinese labs are doing is giving us an option. And even though they're usually like 3 to 5% behind the state of the art, it's like, it's pretty freaking good.
Blind test me. I would say that, there's two, like the GLM and the Minimax. They are like GPT and Claude to me. Very, very little difference. But go ahead, please. So you're fine tuning them?
Yeah, so I think that the near future is like we have to make a few predictions. Right now, it's just a very like we are in a fucking Claude OpenAI world, man. And even with these new models, like scaling GLM and deploying that to users is pretty pain in the ass. Blah blah blah. But this is not going to be the case in a couple of years. I think all of this is going to be extraordinarily commodified, and it just comes down to like, do you have the money to train the compute to fine tune models to your purpose? And the new thing is not just fine tuning but reinforcement learning, which is actually just now become a different take on fine tuning. It's very similar, but we have this ability for before, like, all these things are really hard because like, how do you know that your data distribution is well distributed and it's not like super concentrated on like a few tokens or a few repeat conversations? And that used to be super hard, but now you just like take Claude and run it over your data. So like, because the models are good enough, we can use the model to filter the data to make better models, and that's pretty runaway. And right now, obviously, Anthropic is getting a huge benefit out of this, and everyone on Claude Code is like pushing their code back to Anthropic, who's then judging it and using it to build the next version of Claude with this kind of like reward mechanism that they have. Reinforcement learning used to be really hard because you'd have to say like, well, what is the reward for the agent that's doing the reinforcement learning? And it used to be really, really hard to say like, well, what is a reward?
The user being happy.
Yeah. And so OpenAI's insight was the reward should just be like, how long does it think? Let's just reward more and more thinking time. And that's why GPT 5.2 is so smart and so slow, because it thinks a lot. And what people realize, though, is, well, now with LLMs as the judge, we don't have to have a scalar value as a reward, like amount of time thought or amount of P&L earned. We can actually have the LLM look and give the reward based on its perceived quality of the agent's performance. So if we're like, I want to make the nicest agent, the nicest one that gets the best responses from humans, I could just create that as my valuation criteria, and I could evaluate models purely on that. And now I can like make a model that's the nicest. But I can't do that with Claude. I can't do that with GPT. I need a model that's open source that I can train. And that's where, like, I think we're just starting to hit the point where for us, like internally, we're moving from using like Claude and GPT to all open source models that we're training ourselves. So for Babylon, we have like a continuous reinforcement learning system. That means the agents like play the game, and then we record the trajectories. A trajectory is that everything the agent does to get to that output state. And then we go and we rank those. We basically take like 100 trajectories, find the 10 most variant from the worst to the best, and like, find variance in those trajectories, then rank them from 1 to 10. And then we train on that using GRPO, which was the DeepSeek innovation. But with DeepSeek, again, they just had the scalar value thing. They're just doing a simple reward. And now we can reward based on like whatever we want. The nicest model, the meanest model, the scammiest model, the whatever it is.
So when you said something about Claude, one experiment I did a few months ago is I have a script on my GitHub. It's open. You can install it and then run it in anywhere on your machine, and it'll find every single AI like agent conversation that you've had on any of the platforms, put it together, and then break it into JSON-L so you can fine tune with it. And so and I did that with a small model. I got like these GPUs. I have 8 of them now. It's just like the scaling of this is just such a pain, huge pain to do it like in an actual environment of your own. Like 8 3090s is 200 gigabytes of RAM, a little less. So it would take me like $25,000 and $500 like like $1,000 a month just in electricity to get GLM, like at full peak. It's tough.
You might as well just use Claude, like like the serverless inference is pretty appealing at that point, unless you're running it 24/7.
Yeah.
But
This is what I wanted to say. It's like when you put up Babylon, like the first thing I had in my mind is like, how do you get all of the people that know Eliza to like do this with their code, send it up, and now you have actual training data, right? Because it spans not just Claude Code. Like you can get cursor conversation. Now you have like this really valuable like very advanced technology people. It would be very interesting. Have you thought about doing that with like the attention that you have?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the thing of like, well, we have this user base where if we threw something in like, hey, you can actually monetize your existing Eliza, just like when you run it, turn this flag on and it will start to like send all of your data to our shared data where we can train models and you get like, you get money and access to those models, something like that. I definitely think there's something there, but I think the network effect of this is probably still too small. Like a lot of these ideas are coming into crypto, like Vanna Data DAO or like public AI, like really cool on-chain training things. But the problem is that I think the market might be too small. And it's like probably what's better for Babylon is to get a bunch of new users who don't download Eliza, but they can make an agent inside of Babylon. And then what we're doing is we're creating variants by having each person has their own personality and then their agent does what they want. And then we're just recording all of the trajectories. So inside of Babylon, it is a massive trajectory recording system. And then it, publishes to, we're working with like Noose Research and using Atropos, which is their thing. So then it's a continuous ongoing thing. We still got to get the cron running so it can run like, live.
I opened the PR to there today, Apratos, for the Prime Intellect. I was gonna say that before you even mentioned them. I think you and Noose Research and Prime Intellect will probably turn into one company. And like, this is just like a guess, right? I'm throwing like a little guess.
I would love to work with both. There are two of the teams that are like actually legit AI teams touching crypto, and are serious and authentic about it. And it's crazy to see the Noose guys like, we were all just nerds in a Discord like 5 years ago, like talking to, GPT-3 beta and like Wizard LM and these early pieces of shit models to do like, creative fiction and stuff. And now they're just rocking it. So yeah, it's kind of interesting how that all played out.
What's your opinion on what's coming in the next like 6 months, maybe a year?
It's really hard to say like about the entire world, but we can see some general trends. Like definitely the models are never getting stupider. They're only getting smarter. And we should be trying to build toward the world we see coming. Like if it's going to take me 6 months to build the next big product, like where is the world going to be in 6 months so that when that product arrives, it's at the right place. I can definitely tell things are going to speed up. But I think the real play here is like a meta shift where it was like, okay, you're going to build your small startup and I'm going to build my small startup and you're going to just focus on like one little thing. I'm going to focus on one little thing. And then some other startup's going to come and they're going to get both of our services and they're going to pay for that, right? But realistically now, like the Lego block thing is dead because I look at your thing and I just like copy your docs into Claude and I recreate your startup inside of my app. Like I'm already doing that a lot because like Privy, like I could pay $5 a month per user for Privy, or I could just rebuild Privy in 4 hours. Like why wouldn't I just do that? And so that really changes the economics of the world we're going into, when like your SaaS moat is no longer your SaaS moat. And I think that we have to really rethink what we're building. I think this is a great time, especially for crypto, to finally be what we always wanted it to be. It's like, if you're going to build something right now, no one's going to give a fuck about your like yet another thing, yet another launchpad or L2 or whatever it is. But if you built like, hey, we just decentralized the whole internet, or hey, we actually like built a DAO that actually works and is like fully automated and nice, or like, hey, we built a completely new way to make money and work on the internet, like dream project, big ass shit that you can't just vibe code in a day. That's going to be valuable. And the things that I'm really interested in working on are like, okay, cool. If these, Frank D Gods can vibe code a SaaS app in a week, I'm pretty sure that with 15 years of architecture experience, I could sit here and, build something a lot more interesting than that. And so, we're building the entirety of RuneScape. We're just building like AI RuneScape with AI agents playing it. It's already almost at MVP. It looks fucking great, runs in the browser. And that just would not have been possible last year. I wouldn't have even tried. And so I think that this is the meta is like I would love to see people like us building big ass projects, not just like you vibe coding or me like putting together a little demo, but like let's get together and like build a pyramid. Like what's the tech equivalent of like let's actually build the decentralized internet or something like that. So like what's the equivalent of a great project in our day? And I think that's the meta I'd love to see is like in an era of vibe code slop, there's going to be a premium on stuff that's not slop. That's like, wow, that's really fucking cool. And I also think that in an era where anything can be made, brand and coolness are going to matter a lot. And we've sort of hit this coordination failure in crypto of like gambling degeneracy. But like when I first heard about crypto, I thought it was cool as shit. I thought it was cool. Like it was punks making something punk. It was like fighting against the fucking government and standing for something you believe in. And I thought it's just like cool. It's, you know, coolness is like you cannot manufacture it, you cannot buy it. And certainly like random anon degen gambler buying meme coin shit piece of shit like number 10 on Pump Fund today is not creating it. What creates cool is cool people making cool shit. And then when people make cool shit, everyone comes to use the cool shit because it's cool. And I think that there's an opportunity right now, like any founder, if you're not making the coolest thing you can think of and like just uncompromisingly the best version of it, then like someone else is going to come along and do that and you're going to lose.
I think the brand thing is probably the, like, because I'm okay, I'm sitting here and like I have really significantly looked into like the economics and like all this other stuff. Like I've read into this a lot. So when cameras came around, basically the majority of people were drawing other people or things, right? Like physical, like real world things. And then within 5 years, it all became like abstract art because it was such like a big change of this like perfect fidelity thing that comes in and replaces you. Why? That you had to go and make new stuff. You had to like make new stuff up. Like you can't just do anything else like that's copying something, which is very interesting.
That's a great analogy. I'm gonna borrow that one.
Yeah. Well, I worry about like the economics of it. So I don't think we are ready, just like you said. The cars, so the majority of 33% of jobs in the US are related to driving. So we already have self-driving cars. And the only reason they're not even better than they are is because the governments are trying to stop that from happening, realistically. And it's not the only thing, right? We have the robots from China, $20,000 for like a little guy that stands up and dances. And, you know, if you could figure out how to program the thing and like put, if it's Linux, you could just slap it in there and it'll figure it out. If the model gets good enough, it'll be able to figure it out. Yeah, I'm worried. I'm worried because like, I don't know what my son's life is going to look like at all, right? I don't even know what a year from now is going to look like.
I know. I think the world looks like the world we make. And that like you and I and people like us are in an incredible position of like just being just another human, but having like pretty high leverage to change things entirely by our actions. And I could see the world going one of two ways. Or maybe both ways at the same time for different groups, but like let's be in the good group. I could see it going the like, well, no one has any purpose and everyone just gets free money that we like tax the like Amazon from. And so you have no purpose, but you're supposed to have purpose from a job, but your job is pointless. So we're just going to give you money. And like here, like you're probably just going to go end up on the street doing heroin because like what else is there really for you? Life is pointless. Your work is meaningless. Nothing matters. Like that's one way you could go, but I just don't see the value in that. The other value, the other way I see this going is like, well, you know, if you had been born 100 years ago, you were basically signing up your son to a life of actual slavery for small amounts of money, which don't materially mean very much to most of the people who are actually like enjoying life. And they were basically a financial slave who would work in a job that they didn't give a fuck about to perform a task with like basically half of his waking life doing something he doesn't care about. Or we could live in a reality where now all that dumb shit is done by robots and he can do exactly what he thinks is like actually interesting and meaningful. Like, you know, pursue like a life of why are we here? What is the spiritual purpose of my life? Like, what does it mean to actually have a friend and build a friendship and not just based on utility? You know, there are so many like very basic questions that like I don't even feel like I have the time to ask myself because I am constantly working. And in the world of the future where like there is no work that I can do that an AI couldn't do better than me, then I am forced to ask myself those questions. Why am I here? Like, what is reality about? I thought the purpose was work, but clearly it's not. So it must be something else. And I actually think that if we do this well and we make this go the beautiful, bright, open source, shared, collective interest future that we all want, then your son's future is like, wow, it's crazy that you guys had to work for a living. Like you didn't even get to like explore your inner reality at all. Like you had to go to school and learn from one teacher. You didn't have like a whole army of teachers teaching you anything you want to know immediately. Like that's crazy. You guys were so primitive. You know, I think that's where it can go. And I think that comes down to you and me and people like us actually like stepping up and building real shit and not just like what's another fucking launch pad to extract from people or something. If we build the right reality we want, we'll get it.
So you're strangely in a position where you've always been, or at least Eliza's always been an AI company, but it's been in the crypto like economy, right? So it's been kind of stuck there. I would assume it's very hard to raise funds as like an AI company when you are already like a crypto company. How do you feel about like the future that you are going into with Eliza? Like, is this something that you just stick to, like plant your flag, stay in the crypto world and like try to grow that as a collective? Or do you try to go like basically build like your own thing that is, uses this, but it's not really a part of it anymore?
Well, a few things. One, I'm shipping Eliza for Python and Rust right now. Eliza is probably the most used agent framework in the world in actual production and actual applications. And that's a lot of because like the people building in Web 2 are not using agent frameworks for production. They're mostly focusing on like SaaS, like loops with Vercel AI SDK. And a lot of people in crypto actually like built on the framework. I just shipped a new Python and Rust version, and we're going for like a much more lightweight agentic stack that's like very friendly to Claude and like the new agentic programming so that you can use Eliza in your projects no matter where you are. And we're really pushing outside of Web3. Our big thing, like everything we're doing is actually more Web3 than ever, but it's all backend. We're building a full agent network. We're building Babylon, and then we're taking a lot of that and building Babylon onto this network. And the network is an Ethereum L2 stack where the agents can do all of the things you would want to do in Ethereum and like on chain and everything. But I still think there's a lot to go to make that like production ready. Everyone in crypto Web3 agents is like, oh, we'll build a marketplace. We'll have a marketplace of agents, and there's A2A communication protocol on X402. And it's like, yeah, but you still haven't solved the problem of like, how does the agent discover and use a tool? Like the very, very basic level one, like you have a registry of tools. How does my agent go find a tool and use it? No one's done that or demonstrated it yet. And so I think we have a long road in crypto to get to the point of what people actually expect it to do. And also, I think that, and I think we're building all of that stuff. And I think that by the time we get there, there won't be a Web3 and Web2. There will just be like the web. We have a lot of users who sign up for our Web2 cloud, but they're also signing up on Privy. They all have wallets. They all have identities on chain. They don't even know it. They have no idea that any of that exists. And I'd love to see more of that. As an architect and distributed systems engineer, which is like mostly what I do is distributed systems, like putting together large multiplayer infrastructure networks and stuff. I see the chain as being like this fundamental public database primitive that we need. And like crypto generally as being like a coordination mechanism for the things promised. Like it's the only way to do permissionless kinds of stuff, really. But I see that all as being heavily abstracted underneath like stuff that Web 2 users are used to. So like for us, we're building apps that users can use built on Eliza, powered by crypto, but you would have no fucking idea there's any crypto in it.
I recently paid for like, I don't know what it was. It was like some tech thing. Oh yeah, I paid for some compute on Prime Intellect, and then I click through Stripe, and then it's like US Pay with USDC, and then like that was a very big moment for me because I remember when I was getting paid in crypto, and then getting that to dollars was like a pain. Like I lost so much money bridging between Polygon and mainnet, and but I think you're right about how you're seeing it. I also think that Trump coin was probably like the end of crypto, right? From this like, and I don't think it's ever coming back. So you've been through like a very long life of building stuff, right? Doing open source, like running around. Like, what kind of advice do you have for people that are essentially just getting into the tech side, or like, getting into adulthood, which I think is a lot of the people listening to anything on the internet?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is like, I think for a lot of people, I came out as kind of an overnight success. Like, I was nobody. I didn't even have a fucking X account, and suddenly I had a lot of attention. What people didn't see was like the decade of throwing things against the wall that didn't stick. And I would say if you haven't failed for at least 10 years, you're probably not going to be successful yet. Like, that should be the expectation. And if you do become successful without the 10 years of failure, you're like an extremely rare case. It's like if you are honest with yourself and you look at the world and you like say like, is anyone actually going to give a fuck about this? Is anyone going to use this? Am I making something that people actually want? And you do that over and over and over again, and you just don't have illusions about this reality that you're in or like your place in it, you will hit goal. Like you just, one of those things is going to hit. And a big thing is like startups are a game of taking massive risk, and they're taking massive risk on your own success and investing in yourself. And the more you invest in yourself and you do one thing, one play at a time, not trying to do 10 different fucking projects and everything, but one project at a time, the more likelihood you have that will like actually hit and be successful, because most projects take quite a lot of work. And we're also in a world now where you're competing with every single, like, my personal trainer is making an app. Everyone's making an app. So your app better mean something. And I think it really, like, think about cool and think about purpose and meaning, and like someone using this not because it's like the slightly better TPS version of what came before or some bullshit, but because it's like actually something they want or something you want. And the biggest thing I found is, like, if you just build an app you would use every day and you do use it, you will be successful. And if you don't find yourself using your own app, it's probably NGMI. I even have to do this with Eliza. I'm like, making sure I'm using it just to make sure it actually works for the use case. So I have a lot of lessons I learned, but those are some of the biggest ones. Do one thing, do it well, do it as with all your time, because you're competing with other people who are doing the same thing. Be uncompromising and making the best possible coolest thing. Don't make it lame. Don't force people to use your fucking token to use it. Don't do any of that stupid shit. Just make the coolest, most useful, low friction, like, get people in and get them having.
I can't state enough to like people. I've said this for a long time, is that I think, Eliza and Rucode are like the two most advanced AI, like harness tooling, like agent thing. You guys have done like the whole character stuff, the skills, like that. Now you're in the like multi-agent orchestration, which is something that people are just now starting to like figure out. Oh, well, you could just use one to do it. And Rucode, I think, has like so many UX things built into it. It lets you just I learned a lot from it. Like there's the workflow thing where you just like put roles and then one passes work to another synchronously, so you can run it for. And nobody else was like doing that. And I think there's a lot to be learned from just what you've been through on the tech side of it, especially. I hope you get more recognition, like from the tech builder type people, because I think you do deserve it. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, and hopefully I'll have you again.